In the autumn of 2020, we moved from Belgium to Estonia with the goal of building up an off-grid homestead that could provide us with food, beauty and more time freedom. This also meant we dreamed of building our own home, but we had little building experience beforehand. To keep it as simple as possible, we opted for an uncomplicated design, a long rectangular form suitable for optimal sun catchment, with no separate rooms inside. For the first period, we lived in a tiny old cabin that was on the land, whilst making preparations for the bigger cabin. At the end of the autumn of 2020, the preparations started, cutting of trees, opening up the growing area that would become our future garden, followed by hours and days of debarking on cold winter days. The first priority was making some sort of an insulated closet for the solar energy system, the batteries and the inverter, that should be protected by the frost.
Okay, hi everyone, this is like a small talk about the cabin.
To get out all the fluids from the trees and protect them, we burned them. As soon as the first frost subsided, we started digging the holes and raised the first part of the frame. Jonas learned about making some joints from a couple of books we ordered and practiced on the go. Once the frame was standing, we added a waterproof barrier and a simple underline corrugated roofing material that was pretty straightforward to attach to the roof beams. The next project was to add the floor beams to the frame. In the summertime we had stopped working on the build for a few months due to health issues caused by a tick bite, but with the arrival of the bales, work finally took up again in August, finishing and insulating up the floor. The bales didn't look like they were of the best quality and we felt quite worried about them. Some looked a bit fluffy and were quite loose. We had to find a way to make them as compressed as possible in our wall. We're putting hazel sticks throughout to make the walls stronger. The back wall looked quite uneven and fluffy at this point. Here Jonas is putting in a stone foundation for our water storage of 2000 liters. Everything heavy got a separate stone foundation from the frame of the house. To make the walls more even and ready for plastering, we had to trim them. We're so lucky to have some clay on our subsoil, so that means we can make our own clay plaster for building projects. In autumn there was a lot of plastering to be done, because when the first frost come in, it's over. I wanted at least to have one layer done on each side, to close in and protect the bales, so a lot of digging and mixing by hand followed. To be able to hang anything on these strawbale walls, we are hammering in some hazel branches that serve as a support for putting up shelves. To keep it as simple as possible, we have windows and 2 sliding doors on the south side and nowhere else. There is one back door that allows us to add another bedroom extension on the back one day and allows for extra airflow in the summertime. We bought the glass from a local producer and it was quite nerve-wracking transporting it with our car to our homestead over the dirt roads and putting it into place. Luckily, it all went fine. It took me weeks of making batches, quite repetitively, to cover all the walls. I can tell I consumed a lot of podcasts in those days. Once it started freezing outside, I shifted to start working on the inside walls. Whilst I was plastering, Jonas was trying to figure out how to build a masonry cooking stove with a heated bench. We bought some plans online, but he had never done any brickwork before, so he was a bit nervous. As with everything, with some tweaks and twists, it worked out in the end. It was getting really cold though, and drying the stove out proved not to be so easy. Inside the building it was still cold as well. While outside temperatures were dropping quite a lot below zero, all the air gaps and leaks became pretty clear. Priority now was putting up the ceiling and getting some insulation in, so we could at least trap some of the heat of the stove whilst working on the inside. Whilst the big snowstorm was coming in, Jonas hurried to put up the finishing touches of the chimney, so the snow didn't fall through the pipes. At this point I was still using the outside kitchen attached to the little cabin we're living in, just as last winter. I was getting pretty tired of it. It was very cold. So that motivated us quite good to keep moving on, to start building the kitchen up. During the long dark hours in the winter time, we sanded, oiled and crafted a simple kitchen together that would provide us with enough space for all our supplies. We also installed a gas pit as an extra cooking option and finished up with installing the tiles. After that I finally had a functional kitchen, whilst the rest of the house was still a big mess. It was a point of rest in the chaos, and there was running water. We also longed for a proper warm shower. So far we had managed with a small bathtub that we had put in front of the stove to wash ourselves, but now it was time for an update. The tiles we found in a discount, but we had bought too few, so we finished the shower up with some wood we had left over, which we quite liked. And on the floor we used some terrace tiles. We added a bit more storage space in the kitchen that would also serve as an edge of our sleeping loft. After the mattresses were installed, we finally spent our first night in the new cabin. The weeks that followed we added some light features, a ladder and curtains, and it started to feel really cozy. With springtime quickly approaching now, we finished this chapter of the build with making a closet for our jackets and some storage for my art supplies. The last thing I did was sanding and oiling a part of the floor. From springtime onwards, we've been focusing on other projects, like a greenhouse, the guest house and the gardens. But the house was a cozy place to live, even when not totally finished. In springtime the house was nicely warmed by the sun, but during the summertime our house felt a little bit too much like a greenhouse with all the windows on the south and the many hours of sunshine. So we will be adding a terrace next year on this side, with plants growing over it in trellises that keep the summer sun out, but lose their leaves in autumn so the sun can warm the house up again during the rest of the seasons. In wintertime we will be using our stove, because the sun will be too low to reach our house over the tree line. First half and most important part of the interior is now finished. This coming winter it's time to develop the sitting area a bit more and make some more furniture. Currently I'm working on the outside of the house, doing a second finishing plaster. It is taking me some weeks again, making a batch or sometimes 2 a day if I'm not distracted with eating strawberries from the garden. The reason we share this story is because we want people to know there are alternatives out there, and building a house like this is not that difficult if we can do it. Overall it was a great and empowering experience. Working with natural materials is a real joy, and a very different process from building with modern building materials. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.